All right, I'm going to call to order the Historic Preservation Commission meeting for Monday, June 3rd. And we'll begin with a roll call.
Are they calling the same people?
Really?
Was that a group call? No.
All right, James Hensley,
Here.
Aaron Brown,
Here.
Patrick Kerr,
Here.
Adam Ropp,
Here.
Valerie Duncan,
Here.
Lynn Bilodeau,
Here.
and Joe Chappell.
Here.
All right, everybody's present.
All right. Vote to approve of previous minutes from the regular meeting on May 6, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a vote. We have a motion and a vote.
All right, James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Joe Chappell.
Yes.
And I didn't call the others because they weren't present last time, just so public knows.
All right, so minutes are approved. Item number 4 is HPC application 19004 for a request for a certificate of appropriateness application from Shauna Parker and Angie Willingham for mattress by appointment signage at 103 West Oklahoma Avenue, Gray Brothers Building. Staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was continued from actually a couple meetings. I believe it was heard on April 1st, and that the commission had some questions. The applicant wasn't available at the time, so I believe the applicant is here tonight, maybe not. They were supposed to be here again to discuss because the commission had some questions in that, so I will leave it back to you to, is the applicant here for mattresses? No. Just a quick note from staff that if they are not present, I would just recommend the commission just go ahead and deny the application and make them resubmit at such time, because this has been the third meeting.
Yeah, it's been on our agenda for
Be
3
the third
months.
time.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to deny.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We have a roll call. Vote, please.
James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Patrick Kerr,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Adam Ropp,
Yes.
Lynn Bilodeau,
Yes.
Joe Chappell.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, item number 5 is HPC application 19005, a request for a certificate of appropriateness to repaint the building located at 223 West Harrison. Staff report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item was also at the last meeting, the May 6, 2019 meeting. We only had 4 members that were at that meeting, which was a quorum. However, when we had 1 member abstain, so the vote ended up being 2-1, which in essence was a 2-2 tie. So this was tabled to bring it back for discussion here today. I will say that at the last meeting, the commission did believe that the black was appropriate. However, they wanted the applicant to redo the white to not be such a bright white and to be a cream, more of a cream colored.
Yeah.
And so with that, I'll leave it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and we do have a representative for this application here. Yep.
Hi, I'm Jan Crockett, and I am the mother of Corbin Crockett, who could not be here this evening. I just am here representing him with the new color that was chosen off of the historic paint samples from Ace. And the color that they've chosen is birch tree. and it's D141. It's right here.
Can you show that to us?
I should have put an X by it.
Okay. We'll pass it down, so you don't have to be Vanna White.
There you go. This is this color here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, do we have any discussion on this from anyone on that?
I think that'll look very nice.
Yeah, it's not bright white.
It'll soften it just a little bit. And thank you very much.
And before I leave, on behalf of my son, who couldn't be here, he wanted to apologize again for being a little frustrated the last time.
He had every right
So,
to be frustrated. That's fine.
anyway,
I understand. It comes
He
with the
just
territory.
said, please apologize again, so,
I'll make a motion to approve Birch Tree.
okay.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
All right, James
To
Hensley?
approve.
Oh,
Yes.
yep. Aaron Brown?
Yes.
Patrick Kerr?
Abstain.
Valerie Duncan?
Yes.
Adam Robb?
Yes.
Lynn Billadou?
Yes.
Joe Chappell?
Abstain.
All right, but it still passes with 5-0 vote.
And I have 2 teenage boys if you need help painting for free. I will offer free labor.
That attitude's what made him a good baseball player.
Okay, item number 6 is application 19007, which is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for window signage located at 124 West Oklahoma Avenue, which is the Goodrich Building.
Hello.
Hello. A staff report.
No problem. As indicated, this is for signage on a couple of the windows for the building. The business is the boarding house. They're looking to do a black and, or basically white vinyl on their windows that are somewhat tinted. It meets all the requirements. It doesn't exceed the 30% coverage in that. So staff would recommend that you approve the certificate of appropriateness as submitted.
It matches what we've approved in the past. It's just a different word, right?
This is a new application. We have never, this specific wording vinyl, we've never asked before.
But the other windows, the game lounge and third space,
That's not
It's
up
all
yet.
new.
that's not
Yeah,
up
that,
yet?
I'm sorry, I should have pointed that out. that
Okay,
The,
I'm like-
the illustration that was provided is all new.
A very good
request. Yeah,
illustration.
yes.
Okay.
Looks like it's there already.
It does. I like it. I'll make a motion.
I do graphic design on the side. Hire me, please.
Aaron,
Second.
Aaron made the motion to approve.
Okay, and I'm sorry, who was
Patrick
the second?
seconded. Aaron
Kerr is the second.
motioned and Patrick seconded.
James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Patrick Kerr,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Adam Robb.
Make me consider Adam Robb.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Lynn Billadou
Yes.
and Joe Chappell.
Yes,
All right.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Galen.
Okay. Item number 7 is HPC application 19008, which is a request for a certificate of appropriateness to build a new retaining wall along the southern portion of the property located at 224 South First Street. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as indicated, this is for a retaining wall. It's located at 224 South First Street, and you see some pictures up there. With all the wet weather that had transpired, unfortunately, that retaining wall failed. The owner has done a great job of securing the area. Just as a note, back in 2017, they actually came in front of the commission to get approval for a retaining wall. At the time, they were looking at a 2-foot retaining wall. The item was tabled to have the applicant come back with some more information. I think it was more in regards to how it was going to look. That never transpired, so obviously they're back here today to get approval, and they're looking at a 3-foot wall.
Actually,
I'm sorry.
We've changed it, actually. We're going to redo exactly like it is.
Okay. At this
We're-
point, I was going to say, at this point, I can let the applicant go.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all
We
right.
changed it. We found someone that could redo it for us. The thing that's gonna be the problem is finding, the sandstone. You know, we're gonna try to keep what's there, but there's some of it that is just not good. And I know Mr. Bilodeau said he had some that we could have, so hopefully we've got enough to do that. So that's the only thing that's gonna be, that may change the height of this thing if we don't have enough to make it. But we'd like to try to not slope it that much. We're just concerned it's gonna cause issues with the house.
So if anyone out there has any sandstone,
Yes.
And I probably have 2 tons of sandstone that you guys can have. I have more than I had when I talked to you about it.
Okay, that's great. So I think that we'll have enough, and the plan is just to actually take that one down. There's actually nothing behind that sandstone, so we're gonna put an actual retaining wall and then put the sandstone in front of that.
Perfect.
So you're gonna see some, Delisi blocks going up there, but that's gonna go over it.
Great.
all right.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a
put up
motion.
I'm sorry, who was the motion?
Didn't you put up a wall on it to
Patrick.
keep it from falling?
Yeah, they should.
Is that, I was driving by the other day, I was wondering if that's
Well,
it.
just
Nah, that's it, yeah,
plywood.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, and just for my clarification, that's more or less, again, the exterior sandstone then.
Right.
And then they will obviously have the height of what's necessary. Okay. All right, James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Patrick Kerr,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Adam Ropp,
Yes.
Lynn Bilodeau,
Yes.
and Joe Chappell.
Yes,
All right.
all right. We're halfway through and I'm already tired. H-Space, this is the longest agenda we've ever had, so bear with us. Number 8, HPC application 19009 is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for new paint colors for a building located at 308 South Division.
The applicant is here, our tourism director. The city is looking to rent that space, and we're going to have our tourism or division, or if you want to say department, I guess, in there. And so we're going to do some repainting of the exterior, and Justin's here to answer any questions. I also will pass around the little example, because when I tried to copy it, it looked like bright white, and it's not. So why he's.
You knew better than
explaining-
that.
Is this the building south of Hoboken?
Yes, the old gas station slash old photomat slash old whatever else it's been.
And the color scheme's gray and creamy colored?
Yes, this color. Why I said when I tried it, because it's a little bit of an off-white or cream, depending on how the light hits it.
Is this gonna be the little middles?
Justin, do we know what's going to be white and what's going to be this color?
Yes, keep in mind that I'm colorblind, so.
Okay.
But the.
Did you pick these colors?
No. No.
These are bright pink.
I am just up here to look really dumb. So the gray will be the primary, and then like the existing white stripe that's on it,
Uh-huh.
that will be the origami white. That is like the, kind of like the pinstripe, I guess
Okay.
you call it, around the building and the awning, for lack of a better word. Is there a better word than awning for that?
No, awning's good.
Awning's
We'll
good.
call it awning.
Share.
Yeah, there you go.
The brick,
Everything gray.
Everything
except-
gray
except
except
for
the
the
stripe.
stripe.
Okay,
Yes,
all righty.
like a Charlie Brown t-shirt, only different colors.
What about the, okay, so everything gray, the pole is gray,
Sure.
the underneath
Paint underneath
is
here.
gray.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah. Unless you guys are like, oh, no, no, you don't, then we'll revise that plan. So,
I like the gray and cream. I
Right
don't
on.
see a problem with that.
I'm the chairman, I can't make a motion.
I move that we approve.
All right, motion by
I'll second.
Kerr and second by Dilladu. All right. James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Patrick Kerr,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Adam Ropp,
Yes.
Lynn Billadu,
Yes.
Joe Chappell.
Yes,
All right.
thank you. Item number 9 is HPC application 19010. This is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for the replacement of all the windows in a building located at 111 South Ash. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As indicated, this is, the three-story building at the corner of Ash. Four,
Just
you're
what I
right,
tell
I'm
you.
sorry. Four. And the applicant is requesting to replace all of the windows in that. And my understanding is, and he can probably better explain than I, but it's going to look almost exactly the same. There was another rendering that was submitted because they'll have a black kind of exterior, or the frame will be more of a black, but the rest will be similar to what's there, just more updated windows.
All right,
Any questions?
any questions?
Do you have a sample of the black frame you're going to be installing?
No, I don't.
The,
I think this other image.
yeah, that looks like a building that's not from around here. That kind of
Yeah.
showed a little bit of the black and how
It was
the
clearer on the
windows,
computer.
yeah.
Just a comment is that while this building is in our historic district, this is not a historic building. So this is a non-contributing building to the historic aesthetic of our town site. So I don't see one problem at all with the windows being black.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, the building was built in 1955. You don't want to put 1893 looking windows
Right.
Do I have a motion?
I move that.
Hold on.
Oh,
hold
okay.
on.
Wait,
Are these going to have a thermal break?
Yes,
They're insulated,
yes.
1 inch?
I can't tell you. They're
He
Pella-
knows his windows.
They're Pella windows. I can tell you that.
Fellow? Okay. The only reason I ask is because black, and it gets very hot here. That black attracts the heat a whole lot. So that'll increase your cooling cost. All right.
Do we have a motion? Didn't we have one?
Yeah, I move,
Oh,
I
I'm
move
sorry, I
we
missed
approve.
that, James. All right, motion by Hensley.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Patrick Kerr,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Adam Ropp,
Yes.
Lynn Billadu,
yes.
Joe Chappell.
Abstain.
Thank you.
All right, item number 10 is HPC application 19011. This is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for the Uncle Bob's Trading Post signage located at 113 West Oklahoma Avenue. This is the Cassidy Building. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you indicated, they're looking to have on the exterior, basically existing facade area. There isn't currently signage. There's a picture of it right there. They're looking just to add the signage to that. It'll have colors that were submitted in your application that were, as far as staff was concerned, appropriate for the building as well as the area, and it fits in with the existing color on the building as well. So with that, I'll leave it back to the commission.
I'm guessing you're not Jacqueline?
She is definitely the better half.
Okay.
Yes, Jackie is my wife.
You never know.
I have a question that I'd like to bring up for the, I'm not an expert on fonts or anything, but this trading post, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but the trading post font looks very period to me, but I don't know about the Uncle Bob.
That's just the lowercase version of.
It's still a lowercase version, okay, all right. My question is answered.
Glad I could be of service.
And this is what we're looking at right here, right? This is how the color is gonna look?
Yes. So as far as the color scheme, it is going to be the rhubarb
Yeah, and a la mode.
and, yes.
Okay. Do you have it on a palette there? I only want to look at it just because I don't trust digital pictures like that. Which one?
I marked them, that one and that one.
This and this? Oh, yeah, they're starting. Okay.
I move to approve.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Was it Valerie
Oh,
seconded?
you can take your palette.
Thanks.
James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Patrick Kerr,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Adam Robb,
Yes.
Lynn Billadou,
Yes.
Joe Chappell.
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is HPC application 19011. This is a request for a certificate of appropriateness. Oh, I'm reading the same one again. It's item number 11.
11, okay.
Sorry. HPC, there's so many of them. HPC application 19012 is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for Skin and Nails by Page. The signage located at 215 and a half South Division Street. Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As indicated, they're looking for signage. It's existing, it's a business with the, is it the China Garden? In that same building there. There's a picture in that. The only comment staff would have or had concerns is the colors that were chosen. The pink seems to be a fairly bright pink for what you would traditionally have in a historic area. So our only thing would be is if that could be a darker shade of pink or even a different color, but I'll leave it to the commission to decide what you'd like to do.
I was pretty sure that the pink was a little too much for Guthrie, because I'm a little too much for Guthrie, but I gave the black and white as a sample also. I plan on getting a vinyl sign printed up, so I would just have her print the font and put it on the existing white panels already, if that's an option.
Which do you prefer?
I prefer the pink, but I also like Guthrie, and I understand that it's a little bit much, so it's all pink inside, so I get it either way.
This is an interesting, sort of an unusual request, in the fact that there's two businesses in the same building.
Yes.
And that your signage does go side by side.
Yes, and the green does not go with the pink. Or the-
Right, and I was concerned about a little bit of cohesion, you know, where it just they didn't fight each other.
Yes.
And I think what you're talking about might be a compromise. I do know that on some of the truly historic buildings downtown, that we've had an issue with the bright white of the vinyl. This building isn't one of those buildings, so I might be a little more lenient in that regard, but I'd like the thoughts of the other commissioners.
I really don't have a problem with the pink.
However, it's not on, the palette that
Yeah, I
we're
know.
using right now, and
That's true.
if we go off of that, then we're setting a precedent.
That's true.
And again, if staff could just interject, even if you look at other historic color palettes, they do have, in some cases, a darker, almost flamingo type pink is probably the most,
Flamingo.
or the brightest pink, but traditionally, pink is not usually one of the more dominant colors.
For a minute, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I handed mine in with my application, so.
I'm seeing a dew-kissed and a biscotti. And wouldn't you say those two are the closest to, that's not even really that.
The only concern I had with using the color palette is because I'm getting printed vinyl. I'm not sure the company that I use, how close they could get to the color, and that's why I went ahead and put the black and white option,
So
because
if
I know
if
she
it
can
was
get the
white,
font.
you'd know it'd be white.
I think the black and white was probably going to be the safest bet for us.
Okay, and the font's okay with that?
I
Or-
think so.
well,
Yeah, they're very simple. I mean, they're just block letters.
It doesn't detract from the Victorian.
No, and it's not a historically contributing building, and the one built beside it isn't either, so.
Black, yeah, font's fine.
Okay, do you have a motion?
Anybody? I'll make a motion to approve the black and white.
I'll second.
Are you happy with the black and white?
Yes, absolutely.
Nothing's too much for Guthrie.
I'm hoping not, because I'm ready to make my mark here.
James Hensley,
Yes.
Aaron Brown,
Yes.
Patrick Kerr,
Yes.
Valerie Duncan,
Yes.
Adam Ropp,
Yes.
Lynn Billadou,
Yes.
Joe Chappell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay. Item number 12 is discussion and possible action on establishing a City of Guthrie historical color palette for the Guthrie Historic Preservation District. Staff report.
All right, this is probably where I'm going to make friends or enemies with you guys either way. But I know there's been discussion about a color palette, and even at our last meeting, there was some colors that weren't necessarily on the palette that we were going to look at including on the palette. I guess I was going to give my thoughts and perspective from the commission as some of the things that could become an issue with having a palette. One of the things I did do was I contacted SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, to find out if any other communities had a palette or what they were doing, and there were none. They put me on an email list of all the other historic districts or that have preservation districts and that. And most of them were like, we don't have a palette, and actually there were a number of them that don't even require approval for painting and that. And some of them said that could be a concern. But having said that, one of the, I guess, concerns I have, and I've seen it happen a lot, is when you get to a point where you're looking at specific standards, you're creating those, you're creating that environment where that's it or nothing else type of thing. And then if you go down the road of, okay, well, if it's not on there, we'll go to the commission and they can approve otherwise. And that kind of goes back to why kind of mess with the fact of having a palette if you're not going to stick with it, so to speak. Staff would see benefit of a palette, an approved palette, if you were looking to say, okay, here's some primary colors, here's some accent colors. If you utilize these, you don't need to get approval. You can go ahead and, use these colors. If you're looking to use colors that are outside of that, then you come to the commission. Otherwise, staff's perspective is that you are creating a situation, and the same thing, even with a palette, there's obviously Sherwin-Williams, there's Ace Hardware, there's a number of paints, and there's so many different shades of the same color. Again, you get to where saying, all right, on this palette, we have Birch Park. Somebody comes in, it looks exactly the same, it's almost exactly the same, but it's not Birch Park. So I'm sorry, we can't allow that. And that's some of the issues you get in when you start to get very specific with different standards and that. So from the staff's perspective, I think it would be better serving the community and that to kind of leave it open. The palettes, I think, are great for a guideline for people who don't really have an idea of what maybe is out there, to say, yeah, go talk to Ace Hardware or go talk to Sherwin-Williams or any of those, and they have some historical palettes that you can get an idea, and then come to the commission to finalize it. So with that, I'll leave it to the commission for your discussion and direction. Ultimately, if you're wanting to do a palette, obviously staff, myself, I will go down that road and try to get something that will work But again, I'll leave it with you, the commission, for discussion.
Thoughts?
Well, I feel like we have to have some sort of framework, or else we get purple buildings downtown. And I've seen that happen. So there has to be, whether we have a specific palette, there has to be guidelines there so that we don't have something that stands out to the point that we don't want it to stand out.
Would it be easier to have a list of colors that can't, like chartreuse? Chartreuse,
Well, if we do that, we're surely going to miss one.
day glow yellow, day glow yellow. I
Somebody
mean,
will find one you missed.
Yeah. I like a palette.
I'm not sure what the answer is, but I'm not for just opening it up and letting people use whatever colors they want to use.
Well, and my only thought is, as far as, if we're gonna establish, a palette, I think we ought to have a fairly small number of colors that are just pre-approved, because there are a lot of people that, you know, they may not know they want to paint until a week before they're ready to paint. And if we had a set of colors that said, these are good for primaries, these are good for accents, that would probably cover 80% of the people that are getting ready to paint.
Well, and I think,
And it saves them having to make an application to the commission so I don't have a problem doing something like that if we keep it fairly small.
basic, and then if it was
The
something
basic stuff, and then
outside
if
the
they
box.
want to do anything off of that, I'm fine saying, yeah, if it's off of this, then you need to get permission.
A lot of our red book, it deals with signage. So if we had one that is here's a basic framework for signage, and then here's a basic framework for painting your building, because we might allow bubblegum pink to be in a couple of signs, but we don't want a building bubblegum
No.
pink. So if we had two different ones, depending on what the project is, if it's rehabbing your your facade, because we've had a couple people paint their entire brick buildings, which
Yeah, and-
didn't
and-
go over well.
Right, and just,
So,
I guess, to add to the conversation, I think there's two issues there. One issue is catching them before they do it, and then the actual happening. A palette or not, it isn't necessarily going to stop somebody from not knowing otherwise, you know, and going and painting and then asking for forgiveness, so to
Right,
speak.
right.
Obviously, we try to do all we can to educate people, but, you know, one of the, just to add one last bit, and I'll let you guys discuss, I like to talk. The mechanism in place is really you guys. That's what we have now, because again, by our ordinance, it says if you want to paint your building, you got to come to the commission to get approval in that. And so that's why I was saying is that.
If you're changing the
Yeah.
colors, right?
Well, yeah, right, if you're changing,
You're
yeah. If you're
changing.
staying the same, it's routine maintenance and you can do it. And hopefully, as time goes on, there's more and more approvals on record, so when they do have it, if somebody asks, we can say, no, that's the approved color they've had from, you know, whenever time and that. But again, going back, I guess if you're looking at a palette, you know, it would be the best benefit the community would have is to not have them come to you necessarily if they're gonna use that palette. But again, if there's concern about how that's gonna be done, I would just leave it as is and say, you know, you need to come to the commission and get approval to ensure that what is going to be done is gonna be appropriate.
What you just said was leaving the existing palette?
Yeah. Well, yeah, or using it as a guideline, but ultimately they would come back here. And the other underlying concern I have is if we use Ace Hardware, so to speak, that leaves out other entities that otherwise at some point could come and say, why is their paint so special and not ours?
It just seems like that we could have I don't know whether we could have a workshop to discuss, you know, coming down with a narrow list of colors that could be easily
Sure.
approved without coming to us, and just getting that, you know, it wouldn't be a color palette so much as it would be a list of the colors, right?
of approved colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like, you know, sunlight yellow, or, I mean, it would just be, you know.
And I agree, I don't think we need to be so so rigid that the color has to come off of that particular paint chip folder.
It's gotta be close
And
to
because
it.
I worry about the decisions being too arbitrary if that's the case. I mean, I may dislike pink, personally, and so perhaps I would then vote to not ever approve anything pink, and that's not fair, because it's not my choice. So I like the list of approved colors, and I think that we could work around the palette that we have. We just, it doesn't have to necessarily be that specific. It could be different tints, different hues of the color.
I like the idea of narrowing our color palette and then identifying primary, secondary, primary, and accent colors, and then signage and versus building. If we could have a workshop or a meeting and get, feedback from some of
Yeah,
the
and-
business owners to.
Yeah, and I would agree, that's probably the most appropriate step would be, because again, tonight I wanted to bring it up just for discussion, so again, staff has a little bit better direction how we're gonna go. And obviously, it seems like the commission wants to go at least into, some type of palette or, preferred color schemes and that, which is fine. And so that's the thing, at this point, what we'll do, or what I'll do is look at, kind of getting something done to where you'd have a beginning type palette, have a workshop, you guys can kind of finalize it in, yes, no, otherwise, and then after that, we can bring it back to an agenda where we can have somewhat of a formal approval of that. But I'll look to have somewhere in the near future a workshop to discuss it.
Okay.
Please excuse me, I'm wrong, I apologize.
Would you stand up to the microphone?
Yeah, if you can,
Stand up
if
to
you
the
come to the
microphone.
mic, please, thank you.
Because they are recording it, so people can comment on it
And
later.
if this isn't appropriate for me to ask a question, I understand.
No, it is more appropriate, that's why it was on the
Yeah.
agenda.
From what I understand, the palette is the case in point. So you've got different vendors, whether it be Ace or whomever, Walmart brands or Lowe's, Home Depot. They each have their own palette, they each have their own names depending on who their vendors are. Have multiple palettes, as long as they're all the same relative color. So you have the basic colors of red. This company may call it one color, this company may call it another color, but it's still red. So have a multiple of the major companies, if you will, the major stores. So that way people can approve them, or excuse me, can look at them to get them approved, if that makes any sense at all. So basically multiple palettes from the major providers.
That's a good idea.
I have one pessimistic point to make. I don't trust anybody in the town to do the right thing on their own. I don't. And again, I'm not trying to be the.
What a cold.
I've been around enough already. And I'm just throwing this out there. This is like, we lock our doors at night, not for the ones that aren't going to break in, but for the small that do. And I can already see somebody now in town go, what's on the palette? Oh, says green. This purple looks green to me. I'll paint it. And then they do it, and then we have to go, oh, that's not it. You need to change it. Well, I went off the thing. Well, that wasn't the color we had. Oh, well, it looked like it to me. I mean, I'm already seeing it. I'm already seeing it. I'm just throwing that out. I'm not saying I'm against doing that. I would. Lynn would. I would look at it and go, no, that's the correct.
Well, and that's something that we might, you can't just write red, because before you know it, you'd have some boomer sooner painting their building
Because this,
red.
somebody would look at this and go, this is red. Looks red to me. And then there they go. So that's all I'm saying. Just
Anyway, it'd be interesting food for thought at a workshop. All right, anyone else have any comments on?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Just for clarification, if you guys did have a palette that was approved where someone could come and say, okay, here's my few colors, does that educate that person to say, well, I have approval to paint my building gray, but I'm painting over historic brick? And so does someone know, like, no, you're not allowed to paint over historic brick, even though this is approved? Should you guys come up with a palette like that?
Yeah, and we've actually had discussions about what colors, no, I don't know if you know, but, and we've talked about this before, a lot of the brick buildings in downtown Guthrie are painted
Yes,
brick color.
yes, I've seen that.
So we've thought about, we've talked about having a palette that's appropriate for the building, and, you know, colors that are appropriate for trim being two different things. Like, we did have someone paint a building right next to the Lone Wolf Distillery. They painted the whole front of that brick building white, all the way to the top. And so those kind of things can happen. And if you've got baby blue on here, you can turn around and you can have a baby blue building downtown if they don't know that it's, that's for trim or signage. So we have to be very particular about what colors the buildings can be versus the trim and the signage.
Okay.
So I
'Cause
think
just-
that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I mean, we're still relatively new, and coming from the outside, and you hear people say, well, I'm going to buy a building, and I don't like the brick, and I'm going to paint it. And after spending painstaking hours, taking lots of
I think
paint
that
off
could be
of
like the sentence
exterior
at the
brick.
top of the palette. You cannot paint the red brick buildings any other color but red. Sometimes the paint is used to preserve the brick.
Okay, that was my next question.
The red brick color is, because it
Okay.
seals it. If it's, you know, it's 100 years old, there may be some decay. I think your building's painted, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It surprised me, after that building was painted white downtown, it's the building that's for sale right next to the distillery.
It's
Used to
actually
be
kind of
the-
a putty color. It's not quite white. It's kind of a putty color, isn't it?
No, it was white. It was a cream color that we probably would
It
have
was the
approved.
color of your shirt from
Yeah.
top to down.
Yeah.
But from the bottom of the
top.
building to the top, they painted over all the brick white. Well, you know, we don't ever want that to happen again.
Okay, that was just, it was just a question, and that way we don't have people coming in and
Yes.
getting rid of our Victorian brick without
Yeah.
knowing that they need
Yeah,
to come
a
see
baby
you.
blue building downtown would not look good.
Which is why
Thank you.
I think we should have two different ones, one for signage, one for building, maintenance, upkeep, repair, et cetera, and then primary and secondary for each of them. And narrow it down as much as we can to be as versatile and utilitarian as possible, and then for when somebody wants bubblegum pink, and like, oh, yeah, looks really nice. Okay, here, in this area, I think that would look just fine for your signage.
I
You know,
think
we
that-
could make those choices then.
I think we need some sort of palette, not that those colors are the only ones you can choose, that's a guideline for people. If they're going to buy a building and put a sign up or paint the building or whatever in downtown Guthrie, you know, this is what's appropriate. You make your decision, but these need to come to the commission for final approval, so that the green that they think is purple doesn't, I mean, we could stop that then.
All right. Anyone else?
Good talk.
Any staff comments?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I don't necessarily need to vote, because I think, the consensus of the commission, and again, staff will look to having a workshop down the road where we can further discuss that and get into more detail with, you know, as Commissioner Brown had indicated, with the, you know, building versus facade versus signage, that type of thing, so.
Is there a way that we can make sure we get feedback from the building owners?
Yes, because we could do it to where, yeah, not only is it a workshop, but we could also, we'll advertise it in the paper in that, because we have obviously a majority, but we could probably send out some letters in that too, saying we're going to have a workshop discussing colors, palettes, you're invited, you know, like your input type of thing. And that, so, yeah.
So if you have any more questions or concerns, you can come to the workshop.
Yeah. Because I think that would be important too. Yeah.
Any other staff comments?
None, thank you.
Commissioner comment? I just want to, the one thing that I want to say, I'm going to be out of town next week, and I also serve on the Planning Commission, but Vern Ogden was the chair of our Planning Commission, and he passed away last week, and I'm not going to be at the meeting next week to talk about how much I appreciated him and how much he cared for this city. There wasn't an item that came up on the Planning Commission's agenda that he hadn't personally driven by and checked it out to make sure that it was going to be appropriate and that it was going to, be up to the Guthrie standard. And he will be greatly missed. So that's all I have to say. And with that, we adjourn.